Hello and welcome to our morning, our first event here today. I'm super excited. We've got Bex here and Cathy. I'm going to hand the reins over to Bex in just a second. We're here for the Metaverse, a new economic engine that will empower creators and create new jobs. Now, just before we jump in there, I want to do a quick shout out to Ella City, our sponsor for this event as well. Ella is building a vibrant Metaverse of elephants. All with one common vision: to create an unforgettable digital experience together using Elastos Web3 technology. They are grassroots and are building one collective step by step. They're using bottom-up empowerment tools to bring digital independence and choice. To find out more speaks to the team. Check them out at the booth after the event, and I'll drop an announcement up in the top right of the alerts there, people, so you can go and check out their booth as well after. But Bex, I'm going to jump off backstage. If you need me, you know where to find me, and have fun.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fireside chat with the wonderful Cathy Hackl. So just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone here. It's so wonderful to already see so many of you in our chat box here. Lots of activity going on. A big hello to everyone there. We can see what you were all saying, which is fantastic. Next to the chat box, we have the Q&A section. Now, this for me is the most important thing from you guys to get involved in this conversation today. We have half an hour to talk through not just what I want to ask Cathy, but what you guys want to ask Cathy as well. So it's really important, if you have a question, to pop it in the Q&A. And if you see a question there that you think is particularly important, then please do press that upvote button, because I'll be going via all of the questions that are the most upvoted. And that's the way I'm going to be juggling all of this amazing technology. But for now, I want to, without further ado, introduce the amazing Cathy Hackl. So you are a leading tech futurist. You've been listed on numerous most influential in the metaverse lists. Yes, there are lists like that, which is incredible. You also hold the title of Chief Metaverse Officer, something that I don't think we will have seen a few years ago and now is becoming more and more prominent. But for me and for a lot of people, you are so passionately known as the godmother of the metaverse. And I think that's such a lovely term. So I want to welcome you to this stage, and I want to say a huge thank you for you to come and share your incredible knowledge with us today. I want to start very quickly with the fact that you are called a Chief Metaverse Officer, because that isn't a term that we will have heard in the last few years. And now it's something that I think, looking to the future, it's going to be something that's going to be so much more prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's going to be really interesting how some of these new jobs and careers evolve. And when I got that title, let's say when I gave myself that title really to kind of push the industry, because I was like, I have run my own business, and I'm like, I really like the Chief Metaverse Officer. So I was pushing the industry, right? I was pushing the industry. And what I'm finding really interesting is that, Vogue Business actually wrote an article, like, should you hire a Chief Metaverse Officer? And they got a lot of reactions. I was talking to Megan McDowell, who wrote the article, and she was saying that they got a lot of reactions in favor and a lot of people against as well. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to get such a reaction. But the reason is because I feel like, especially with the metaverse and with new careers and new opportunities, we got to get a little uncomfortable, right? Yeah. So it's been interesting to have that conversation. But then again, you look at, big news announcements like yesterday, Balenciaga and OTB announcing that they're creating, metaverse units of sorts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, is it going to be Chief Metaverse Officer? I'm not sure if that's going to be necessarily the title, but what I would say is, just like, at some point, Chief Digital Officer seemed like a silly thing, right? Or like Chief Content Officer might have seemed like a silly thing, or Chief Experience Officer might have seemed like a silly thing. I think it's going to be an evolution. And no, someone's mentioned in here, Silica. Yeah, they also have a Chief Metaverse Officer, I think, or head of Metaverse. But I think we're going to start to see more and more titles around Metaverse. And Bex, just to frame the godmother of the Metaverse name, someone from the Nike Metaverse team actually gave me that name. So I think that, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, but do you know what? We've all adopted it, because that's what you are now to all of us who are passionate about the metaverse. I was interviewing someone for our Tech Circus community event the other day, and a lot of people look to you as the godmother. The wonderful Joe from Epic Games was like, oh yes, Cathy, she's a legend in this space. What first interested you in the world of the metaverse? What brought you into this?
Yeah, so I've been working metaverse related industries or companies for the last 8 years, right? So I'm not new to this. I've been talking to executives about the metaverse for years, right? Even when they were like, oh, that's so sci-fi, went over their head, or like, I don't want to spend time talking about that, right? Which is really interesting. And, now with everything that's happening with the term metaverse and, a certain big tech company rebranding, all sorts of things. Now, all the C-suite and a lot of those executives are kind of like, hey, can we chat about that metaverse thing? So I, I don't know, like I arrived at it by passion, by being able to kind of see the way I describe it to people is when I put the first virtual reality device on my head and I had a really interesting experience. It's like I recognized a rocket when I saw one. And I said, I'm getting on this rocket. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And it's been 8 years. And it has evolved. Like I used to be very much in AR and VR only. Now I feel like I'm doing a lot more work in what I would call Web3. So like I'm doing stuff with NFTs. I'm doing things with virtual worlds, with virtual fashion, and a lot of different things. And sometimes there might be an element of VR and AR, but it's not solely focused on that. Yeah. So it has been a process. What I do think is important for everyone listening to this panel right now is to understand that we're early, right? If this event proves anything, is that we're hungry for information like this, that it's early, and that this is an opportunity for everyone here to level up and be part of Web3. It's a great opportunity. Like if you're listening to this and you're interested in doing a career switch, Bex, and you're proof of this too, right? Yeah. You are going to be welcome into this new Web3 space, and I think that that's really exciting.
Yeah, and you've picked on the buzzword of not just this event, but this whole space, opportunity. The metaverse is about opportunity, and this is such an exciting time because you can literally create your own opportunity. I've never seen anything like it, and although you say we're early within the NFT spaces, which is where I kind of sit the majority of the time, everyone's like, we're still early, and I was like, you were saying that 3 months ago. I feel a little bit late. Are we actually still early?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and good morning, GM. I see that.
GM. But yeah, I like it's that question is like, how early are we? And actually, there's an interesting question that's come in from the audience already, from Hakan actually, who has asked, is the metaverse a temporary trend or actually the future? And I think that's quite an interesting question to kick starters, because we're going to be talking a little bit about it within the business sense, but also within the consumer sense. And I think to shape it in the right way, this is a great way to kick off. So what's your views on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, just like at the beginning of the internet, there was a term, the internet superhighway, right? We don't use that term. And no one says, excuse me, mom, I'm going to go get on the internet superhighway. Like no one says that. So we're using the term metaverse, right? Which in essence is a sci-fi term. Yeah. We're using it right now to describe the future, the successor to today's mobile internet. So is it going to be the term metaverse? I'm not sure. It might. It seems to have taken on a life of its own. In 10 years, we might not even call it that. It just might just be part of daily life. What I do know is that it is the future where we're going, right? With this, and you've probably heard this throughout some of the talks, but Web 1.0 connected information, and you got the internet, Web 2.0 connected people, and you got the sharing economy and e-commerce and social media. And now Web 3.0 connects people, places, and things, or people, spaces, and assets, right? So it's an evolution of kind of where we've been and where we're heading. So, it might seem like a trend per se, but I think that it is about the future. It is about the future of content. It is about the future of connectivity, the future of work. And at least the brands that I work with, because I'm on the ground floor when they're making some of these decisions on their future, they're really trying to think long and hard about what this means for them. If the future of the internet is X and includes the metaverse, then what does that mean for them? So it's a very valid question, though. I mean, is there hype around it? 100%. And I have to be honest, I've benefited from that hype, right? Because everyone wants to talk metaverse, right? So it's trendy. Is it a trend? I'm not sure. I think it's the future of the internet. So. Yeah.
And actually, you just mentioned that you've been talking to brands who suddenly come to you and gone, oh, this metaverse thing, let's get involved. Yeah. But yet, for the last 8 years, that's actually been a much tougher journey for you to get those conversations. And now you're kind of like, oh, right, everyone's waking up now. Do you think that is a direct cause of the pandemic, or is it actually down to the fact that Mr. Zuckerberg made a big announcement and that has caused a lot of people's ears to prick up?
I think it's been an evolution. I think definitely the pandemic accelerated that interest into these virtual spaces and kind of how we were living our lives so digitally, even further. So I think there was an acceleration there. We weren't really calling it metaverse. I was, but maybe some other people weren't calling it that. So that was one thing. I would think another moment, at least that I've noticed, was when Roblox went public and they had their IPO and they were on CNBC saying the word metaverse.
Yeah.
That was another moment when someone's like, oh, I've heard you say this. What is this? Right. So that was another moment. Then, Zuckerberg, when there was before the rebranding, he had done like, I think, an earnings call, and he had talked about the metaverse, and he had said, we want to be known not as a social media company, but as a metaverse company. That was another moment. And then the full rebrand. I mean, when he did the rebrand from Facebook to Meta, I mean, I have never experienced anything like that before, but like my phone felt like it was going to melt. Like I've never gotten so many calls, messages, texts. It got to a point where I was like overheated. It was overheating. I was like, I didn't even know how to manage it. So I think I was seeing an evolution. I wouldn't say it's like just one thing. It's been an evolution of certain things that have happened along the way.
Now, part of that evolution for brands is a big thing because their ears are pricking up now. Now you've got on your website that according to Bloomberg Intelligence, the global metaverse opportunity could reach 800 billion in 2024. Yeah. That is fast, right? I mean, how are we going to get there so quickly?
I think there's just an acceleration, right? And the billions of dollars that are starting to be invested, that have been invested really through several years. But I think we've seen an acceleration of excitement. This is what I tell people. It's like there will be some type of shake out. There's going to be some type of market correction, especially kind of in the NFT side, right? Yeah. Something needs to shake out because it's a little crazy right now. Yeah. But I do see it. It's a big opportunity. The word, like you said, the word is opportunity. The word of this event should be opportunity. Some people put the projections at $1 trillion. But what I will tell you is something that is very true is that there's an estimate right now that this year alone, there's an estimate about, I think companies expect players to spend about $100 billion on virtual goods inside gaming platforms. And that doesn't include NFTs. That's just virtual goods inside gaming platforms, like a virtual sword or a virtual skin. Those are interesting numbers, right? And that's 100 billion this year alone. So I don't think we need to get ahead and think about, we can get ahead and think about 2025 and 2024, but it's happening right now. And I think that that's the exciting part for the creators, right? I think there was some comments over here that were saying, about related to creators and skills. I mean, this is an opportunity. And Bex, you've heard me say this. I say in this future that we're going into, right? We're all world builders.
Yeah.
Right. And this is your time to build. And that doesn't mean that you have to be, Solidity developer. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be super highly technical. There are ways for you to build and do things that don't necessarily require you to be super technical. If you are, and you can develop in Unreal and Unity, good for you. You're going to be able to build even bigger. But
yeah. To that point, actually, look, I'm a good example of this. You take what you're good at and you try and adapt it into the world of the metaverse, right? So for me, it's about content creation, and that's what I do. And it's just about thinking a little bit differently about the world that you're in and what you can give to this new evolution, as you put it. I mean, the other thing that I want to touch upon with you is the fact that you, as a woman in tech and as a woman in this space, it's such an exciting time for all of us women in this space. And you're actually helping a lot of women through accelerator opportunities to really improve their personal brand. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what you think about women, the opportunity for women in the tech space right now?
Yeah, I'll definitely say something important is that whenever the internet was built or whenever social media was built, the Web 1 and the Web 2 space, not everyone was technical. We needed people in marketing. We needed people to be product managers. We needed people to be on the business side, on the accounting side. So I think it's really important for people to know that, yes, we are going to need the highly technical people, and you guys are extremely, extremely important and valuable. But also don't be discouraged, right? Don't be discouraged if you don't have those technical skills. I mean, go and get some if you feel like that's the way to go. But know that we are going to need all sorts of people to build this future that we're going into. So there's a great opportunity there. And I would say for women, I want to see more women being welcome into the space. I'm trying to do, my own part. One of the things I did this year was I started to put capital behind my words, right? So I became it was my first foray into any type of, being an angel investor or any sort of thing. So I became a limited partner at the Women in XR Fund, So I'm a limited partner there. I started to do some small investments via Alexis Ohanian's 776 fund. So I'm an LP there. I recently became a partner at Outlier Ventures. So I'm trying to kind of put capital behind this and try to fund interesting founders, and also allow women. There's a lot of women that come to me and say, wow, what you've built and how did you do it and everything, and said, everyone has an opportunity to do this, right? How, to use me as an example, but also start doing it yourself. You have a voice. You have a voice, and you have to believe that you need to be able, you need to be sharing your message, Bex, just like you are. And one big thing for me, especially when I'm talking to women, is share those wins. Don't feel like you need to hide. Share the wins. Don't, just pat yourself on the back and feel good about what you're accomplishing. And if you want to be public about it, go ahead and do it. Because it is, the more people that, I think the saying is, if you see it, you can be it. Right. So if you and I can be those types of, beacons or examples that other women need to see, then we need to also be at the forefront doing these things. So
yeah, 100%. For anyone that's thinking from a business perspective of wanting to get into the metaverse, now you've worked with fantastic brands that are moving into this space. From your learnings from working with these brands, what would you suggest, or what advice would you give? Because I think what brands need to know to start moving into this space, because you might be blowing their mind the moment you walk into their office or have that first call with them, because there is a mindset adjustment to understand this. Like, are you going to tell them to watch Ready Player One and then get it? Like, is that how it's going to work?
No, because it's not the Oasis. We don't want reality to be so horrible that we leave it, right? One of the things I do is kind of do a lot of education, because I will come in and it'll be like, oh, it's Ready Player One. And I'll be like, nope. Those are the pretty dystopic sci-fi interpretations, right, of the future. One thing that an analogy that I'm using a lot lately is, if anyone watched Squid Game, there's a tug of war scene, right? And I feel like sometimes when we're having a conversation about the metaverse, some people feel that it's a tug of war between the physical world and the virtual world. And no, it's not a tug of war. Like, I want virtual, you want physical. I don't think it's that. I think the metaverse encompasses both our physical world and virtual spaces that we might inhabit that might be fully immersive at times, or don't necessarily need to be fully immersive. So I think it's a lot of education, a lot of getting people comfortable with the term, and having them just get a good understanding of, this is where we're heading. Don't be intimidated by it. Let's really have all these concepts and ideas, and we're all pioneering this. Right? There's no right or wrong answer right now. We all have to test. We all have to build. Once I always go back to world building, we have to build, iterate, change, learn what's right, learn what's wrong. Big thing though, and I think you can agree with me, Bex, on, I think it's important to have some of the difficult conversations now around privacy, security, children, all these sorts of things, to have those right now, instead of in 10 years or 15.
I mean, in the NFT space, I very much constantly refer to it as the Wild West. There are lots of different ways in which you can get scammed, your privacy is hacked, there's all this kind of stuff. And it's down to people like myself to put out as much as content you can to help you guys protect it. But at the same time, it's just about being alert and being savvy to that. And you're right, asking those questions right now. With this kind of mass adoption that will happen in the not too distant future, we do have a question that kind of relates us back to what you just been saying, Cathy. It's come from Adam, and it says, Cathy, how do you think we can most effectively bring people in real life into the metaverse to purchase goods and services? Because this is the thing, it is that mindset shift. For my nephew, for instance, who has been playing games, he's 10 years old, right? He asked this year if I could buy him some tokens for his tank game. And I was like, yes, you get it. Whereas actually my mum is like, oh, you're doing an event on what? Metaverse? Okay. So it's kind of like, where do we ease these people into it? And particularly the idea about, why would I want a digital service or goods? Why don't I just go to the shops? What would be that?
Well, I think once again, I think it's the idea and the concept that it will be physical world, it'll also be virtual, right? So we're still physical beings in a physical world, right? So we're still going to need clothes, and we're still going to need detergent, right? Like we're still going to need some of those things. But what's happening here is that we're starting to have digital ownership of digital assets, right? It starts in games. Do you really own something if you buy it in Robux? I'm not sure. Right. But what's happening is that that's priming the market for like NFTs and digital ownership of digital assets on the blockchain. right? So I think that there is an opportunity to think about how these new digital assets become stores of value, becomes potentially new investment vehicles, and that's not investment advice, or become, new ways to have collectibles that gain, they gain value. But at the same time, not forget about the physical. What I would love to see more, and one of my clients, Boson Protocol, is working on this, is creating a tie between real world commerce, so physical commerce, and commerce in the virtual spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you buy something maybe in a virtual space that shows up physically in your doorstep?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's going to be some really interesting things happening there, because we're still virtual beings.
Yeah.
A very clear example of this, and like when people are like mind blown, I'm like, well, this kind of already happens. We just don't realize it. Like my kids, there are certain gamers that they really like. They'll watch these gamers play on Twitch and YouTube and stuff. And then they'll be like, Mommy, can you get me so-and-so's merch? Right. So they're already, they're not buying it in game because they don't have that possibility, but they're already asking me to buy them stuff from their favorite gamers. Right. So it's you almost have to see it as a continuation of that. I also think it brings up a huge opportunity for creators. And I use a phrase, I say the world's next Coco Chanel might be a 10-year-old girl designing skins in Roblox.
Yeah.
Right. I wholeheartedly believe that the up and coming designers are going to be those creators of today. So it'll open up opportunities, and that person might have a virtual line, and maybe one day they'll launch a physical line. Who knows?
Yeah. So I think the advice to parents is when traditionally you'd be saying, stop spending all that time on your games. You're now going, no, spend as long as you want learning.
Spend as long as you want. But if you give the kids the capability to do world building, like with Roblox, you have Roblox Studio, so kids can become Roblox developers, or, Minecraft or what have you. Like, let them play. But also, I think this is a huge thing, is allow them to build, because that is going to build resilience. Like sometimes my kids will build a game and then something crashes and they have to rebuild. That shows them how, that really helps them in some way, I think, become, more resilient. I mean, they've already become really resilient through the pandemic, but from a building perspective, I think that's been interesting for me to watch.
And actually, to that point, and also harping back to kind of us talking about women in this space, Adam again has asked, regarding getting women interested, how do we responsibly encourage our daughters to get interested? Is there a natural and safe on-ramp from other experiences? And you mentioned Roblox as well. I think it's just about all kids. Like, how do we encourage and nurture this without it kind of being an element of overwhelm and, and finding ways that are, there is a worry about the toxicity around this, because look, within the metaverse, you can be anyone who you want to be, right? And that has pros and that has cons. And if you're introducing your kids into this space and they're the next generation of these builders and leaders in this area, you've still got to kind of have that parent hat on it and have that air of caution, don't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, still put all the restrictions and the, safeguards that you can, obviously.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing, at least with my kids, is that these gaming spaces are their new social network, right? So this is where they're spending time with their friends, where they're celebrating birthdays if they can't be in person. So we also have to understand that, right? This is a new place where they're socializing.
Yeah.
And, you can try to control that. Obviously, you should try to control that. But I don't want to necessarily take that away from them, because it is a place, especially during the pandemic, that's where they saw their friends.
Yeah.
So, what can we do? I mean, I think, I don't know. I feel like I've seen a lot of really interesting female founders start to think about some of these ideas and some concepts and try to maybe bring some of these potential new ways of connecting.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to be seeing really interesting things. I think we need more women in leadership, right? We need more women out there doing, working, building, and
mentoring as well.
Yeah. And allies. And I don't want to make it only like, women. I think, minorities, differently abled people. One of the things that I have to say, like with differently abled people, like it's changed my perspective. Because I used to always say, well, wouldn't it be great if you could have put a VR headset on and be able to walk if you're a differently abled person? And then I actually had someone that was differently able reach out and said, well, in my case, no, it'd be really traumatizing for me to do that. I want to be able to have my wheelchair in my virtual avatar. And that really challenged me and made me, think of like, oh, because my reasoning was like, oh, this would be great. But for them, it was like, no, this is actually traumatizing. My identity is part of, being differently able is part of my identity. And I want to be able to transfer that identity into virtual spaces. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of questions and a lot of things. And I think asking those questions, right, when we're when we're creating those avatars, when we're creating these experiences, not from just one perspective, from multiple perspectives, I think is going to be very critical and important.
Yeah, and asking those questions now, right? This is the time to learn and grow.
Yeah.
That's the important takeaway from this conversation is you're right, you're here, you're asking those questions, you're being part of this conversation now. We are very much still early. Some of the questions that are flying in actually from our lovely audience is around like, what do I do in the metaverse? I'm a content writer. I'm a small business. Someone's even asked me, what's the future of YouTube as a platform in Web3? How does that even look? I don't have the answer to that. I'm still just figuring out YouTube as it is. But it is everyone's kind of going, how do you adapt your skills into the metaverse? And actually, this is how can conceptual creatives adapt their skills into the metaverse? What role does traditional advertising or marketing play in this? This has come from Vibs Thacker. So thank you very much for asking that question. I mean, the possibilities are endless, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, we're all, this is the wild, wild west. Like you said, we're all pioneering it. These are great opportunities. I would say, so one of the things I'm trying to do is I with Republic Realm. So Republic Realm is the virtual real estate company that's behind the purchase of like the shopping district in Decentraland, the Harajuku, like Metajaku, sorry. There's a whole bunch of different things that they're doing. So I've partnered with them to launch the Republic Realm Academy. And that is executive education it's non-technical. It's for executives or professionals, executives that want to level up, professionals that might be interested in switching, in doing a switch, and students that might be looking to complement some of the things that they're seeing in university. But yeah, like we're launching already something for executives because we feel that, and professionals, because we do feel that there is a need to level up and understand Metaverse better, understand Web3, tokenomics. It's really interesting. We've got, UC Berkeley faculty, we've got Boston University faculty, we've got folks from industry. So yeah, I mean, if that's of interest, I'm happy to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a discount code, folks, if you want to sign up for that.
Yeah, and to that point, I've had a look at that, and I think it's fascinating because there is so much information out there, right? Yeah. A lot of people won't know where to start, and to have like a guiding force to kind of say, look, we can help you break this down, make it understandable, and allow you from whatever industry or path you're following. I think this is, we need more guidance like this because the space is, we can't just talk about all this in half an hour. We're coming up to the end already. Yeah. And it's kind of like, even an hour isn't enough. This is stuff we're going to be talking about for years and years and years. And it's like, where do you start? And I think, that is a really great resource to have.
Yeah.
Exactly why you've set this up.
Yeah, it's a place to start. I think one of the things that we're also trying to do is create an alumni network where people that once they go through the academy, they can stay connected. Potentially, I have a feeling there are a lot of collaborations and a lot of job opportunities are going to pop up from it. Yeah. So, I can't guarantee that, but I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting things coming from that. So there is a need.
Yeah, and I have to say to the point of that is that actually what I have noticed within this space right now in terms of those networking and the conversations is you will never get another time where people are as generous as Cathy is being now and and as willing to give information and help. Like I've seen this within NFT Twitter, for instance. You ask someone to help you through something because you don't quite get how to swap one cryptocurrency for another, then suddenly everyone's like, let me come and help you do this, because that's what this community, and we talk about community so much within this space right now, within the metaverse, within NFTs, within crypto, because it is all about community. We all help each other to help and grow. So now is your time to ask before we all get a little bit too busy, maybe. And
a little too busy. I agree. And I think events like this one, that's why they're so important, right? Because they're bringing they're bringing conversation, they're bringing important questions. It's connecting people. I'm sure that just by the chat, people have connected afterwards on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So these sorts of things, we're bringing everyone together. I think incredibly important. So great job to Tech Circus for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, guys, I knew this would happen. That half an hour has absolutely flown by. And how could it not when Cathy's been such a brilliant, brilliant person to interview here? She is the godmother of the metaverse. She's a chief metaverse officer. God, that is a mouthful. And she is the woman that is helping us really guide our way through to the metaverse. So listen, please do connect with Cathy. Follow her on LinkedIn. She is an amazing resource of information. She's doing wonderful things within this space. And she's been a fantastic person to interview today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.